Margaret had always been active. In her younger years, she danced, gardened, chased after kids, and walked everywhere. But at 68, things weren't the same. She noticed her hips felt stiff in the mornings. Her lower back ached after sitting too long. Reaching the top shelf or turning to grab something behind her became little battles she wasn't used to fighting. At first, she chalked it up to aging. That's just how it is, she told herself. But deep down, she hated that answer. So she brought it up during a doctor's appointment, half expecting a shrug or a prescription. Instead, the doctor leaned forward and asked her a question. How often do you stretch? Margaret hesitated. She couldn't remember the last time she'd done more than a casual toe touch. The doctor smiled and slid a simple paper across the desk. Try these 6 stretches. Do them daily, even just once. Give it a few weeks and see what happens. Skeptical but curious, Margaret went home and started the next morning. What began as a quick routine in her robe turned into a daily ritual that transformed how she moved and how she felt about getting older. 1. Standing forward bend. The first stretch felt familiar, standing with her feet shoulder-width apart, then slowly folding forward, reaching toward her toes. At first, her fingertips barely brushed her shins. Her hamstrings felt like tight ropes, and her back gave a cautious twinge. But she breathed slowly, let gravity take over, and stayed in that position for 30 seconds. Over the next few days, she noticed her body surrendering a little more each time. Her hands reached closer to her ankles, her back relaxed, and the morning tension began to melt. It became a mental reset, too, a moment of silence before the day started. 2. Cat-cow stretch. Margaret used to think stretches were for athletes or yoga types, but when she tried the cat-cow on her living room rug, she was surprised how natural it felt. On all fours, she arched her spine upward like a cat, then dipped it down, lifting her chest and head like a cow. Each movement loosened her spine and gently massaged her lower back. After a week, she realized she was sitting longer without the usual aches. The simple rhythm of this stretch woke up her body and gave her posture a lift that no brace ever could. 3. Seated spinal twist. Twisting had become something Margaret avoided. Every time she turned in her seat, something in her back grumbled. But the seated spinal twist, done slowly and with intention, became her secret weapon. She sat on a sturdy chair, crossed one leg over the other, and gently twisted toward the bent knee, using her opposite hand for support. The first few tries felt tight and a little awkward. But with each breath, she felt the tension in her spine unraveling. After a few weeks, she could turn more freely, not just in the chair, but in everyday life. Reaching behind her in the car or picking up a dropped glove no longer felt like acrobatics. 4. Chest opener, against the wall. Hunched shoulders had snuck up on her. Margaret caught her reflection one afternoon and saw a slight curve forward she didn't remember having. The chest opener stretch helped bring her shoulders back where they belonged. She stood by a wall, placed her palm flat behind her at shoulder height, then gently turned away from it until she felt a deep pull across her chest and the front of her shoulder. It wasn't painful, just insistent. After holding the stretch on each side, she stood straighter without even trying. The tightness across her chest loosened. Breathing became easier, and that curve in the mirror began to soften. 5. Hip flexor stretch. Tight hips had been Margaret's silent enemy for years. She'd blamed the pain on old shoes, long car rides, and even her mattress. But none of that was as powerful as the hip flexor stretch. She used a chair for balance, stepped one foot back into a lunge, and sank her hips forward gently. It didn't look like much, but she could feel it, right in the spot that always pinched when she stood up after sitting too long. The stretch not only eased that discomfort, but gave her a newfound ease when walking or climbing stairs. It was like oiling a rusty hinge. Each day it moved smoother. 6. Ankle circles and calf stretch. Balance had become more of a concern lately. Margaret caught herself reaching for railings more often. The last stretch on the list focused on the foundation, her feet and ankles. She sat down, extended one leg, and slowly rotated her ankle 10 times each direction. Then, standing with hands on the wall, she leaned forward into a gentle calf stretch. It was subtle work, but the effects showed up fast. She felt sturdier when she moved. Her feet didn't ache as much. The swelling she used to get by the end of the day started to fade. 3 weeks into her new routine, Margaret felt like she'd reversed time, not in a dramatic magazine cover way, but in real, tangible movements. She got out of bed without stiffness. She knelt in the garden without worrying she wouldn't get back up. She caught herself standing taller, moving freer, smiling more. What surprised her most was how little time it took, less than 15 minutes each day. And the movements weren't exhausting. They were calming, energizing, like her body was sighing in relief every time she stretched. Now, her stretches were as much a part of her day as morning tea. They weren't about being young again. They were about keeping what mattered: mobility, independence, comfort in her own skin. Margaret kept that paper the doctor gave her. It was folded and taped inside her kitchen cabinet. A quiet little reminder that growing older didn't have to mean growing stiff or giving up. Just a few stretches, done daily, could change everything.